Nia Robinson stepped onto the jet bridge at JFK, straightening the lapel of her charcoal gray blazer. She'd made this trip dozens of times. Her private jet was in for routine maintenance, so today she flew commercial. She'd anticipated polite nods, a respectful greeting. After all, she was the founder and CEO of Robinson Dynamics, a billion-dollar aerospace firm headquartered in Manhattan. But nothing had prepared her for the look on Sabrina Holloway's face. Sabrina stood at the threshold of the first-class cabin, arms folded, her posture immaculate in a crisp navy uniform. Her blonde hair was pulled into a perfect chignon, and her name tag gleamed beneath the overhead lights like a badge of entitlement. As Nia approached, Sabrina's lips curved into a smile, one that barely concealed amusement. "This cabin's for our premium guests only, ma'am," Sabrina said, her voice bright but laced with condescension. She tilted her head, eyes narrowing ever so slightly, as if evaluating whether this woman in a simple cashmere coat belonged here. Nia paused for a heartbeat, taken aback. She'd expected a brief identity check or perhaps a polite, "Welcome aboard, Ms. Robinson." Instead, she got that phrase, "Premium guests only," delivered with the unmistakable tone of someone who believed they could judge worth by appearance alone. Heat warmed Nia's cheeks, not from embarrassment, but from indignation. She could have let her security team handle this. She could have waved her business card like a flag of authority. Instead, she took a breath and stepped forward, calm but firm. "Thank you," she said evenly, her voice soft but unwavering. "I'm on the manifest for first class." She reached into her tote and produced her boarding pass, the edges crisp, her name printed in bold type. Sabrina glanced at the pass, then back at Nia, as though she were reading a foreign language. She raised a perfectly shaped eyebrow. "Ma'am," she said, voice dropping to a diplomatic whisper, "we have limited seats." She allowed a beat for effect, as though the next words would be a generous concession. "If you'd like to move to economy, I can escort you." A hush rippled through the cabin as wealthy passengers craned their necks, curiosity flashing in their designer sunglasses. Nia's heart hammered, not from fear but from resolve. She straightened her spine, the cashmere coat falling neatly around her shoulders. "I won't," she said quietly, letting the single word carry the weight of her authority. "I paid for this seat. Please step aside." Sabrina's smile flickered, the well-practiced warmth vanishing in an instant. She stepped even closer, too close, letting her superiority fill the aisle. "You misunderstand," she said, tone clipped. "I'm not asking." Silver strands of Nia's hair caught the cabin light as she tilted her head. She studied Sabrina with the quiet patience of decades spent negotiating boardrooms and high-stakes contracts. She could see the narrowing of the attendant's gaze, the momentary quiver of insecurity at being challenged. "Then I will ask again," Nia replied, her voice a soft melody of steel. "Please move, or I will have my assistant verify this." She nodded toward the shadows beyond the cabin door, where her personal aide waited. For a split second, Sabrina hesitated. Her polished shoes clicked against the aisle floor as she leaned in, perhaps to retaliate with another sharp rejoinder. But before she could speak, Nia offered a small, disarming smile, one that held no malice, only the unspoken promise of consequences. A pregnant silence followed. The other passengers leaned forward, eager for the outcome. Then Sabrina straightened abruptly, color draining from her cheeks. "Right," she said, in a voice that sounded forced even to her. She glanced at Nia's boarding pass again, then stepped aside with exaggerated deference. "Please, go ahead." Nia slid into the plush cream leather seat and settled back, crossing her ankles. She placed her designer tote on the armrest and exhaled softly. Around her, the cabin returned to its quiet murmur, but the atmosphere had shifted. In that charged instant, everyone knew a reckoning had begun. Only they didn't know how far it would go. And as the door closed behind the last boarding passenger, Nia's calm eyes reflected the flicker of a private plan already in motion. A single tap on her phone would soon set everything right. Nia Robinson eased into the supple leather of seat 2A, tucking her cashmere wrap around her shoulders as she surveyed the business-class cabin. Soft ambient lighting cast a warm glow across polished wood veneer and brushed metal accents. A flight attendant glided past, fluffing pillows and offering a pre-departure beverage trolley. Despite the luxury surrounding her, Nia felt most at home in environments where her presence didn't demand fanfare. She slipped off her ankle boots, crossed one leg over the other, and placed her osteopathic compression socks beneath the seat in front of her, an unostentatious nod to comfort over show. As the flight attendant poured Nia a steaming cup of herbal tea, Nia smiled with reserved appreciation. She had no particular affection for champagne flutes or caviar. What she valued was efficiency and purpose. Today, she flew commercial because her Gulfstream was undergoing avionics calibration. It was a minor inconvenience, but one that reminded her how important it was to walk or fly a mile in someone else's shoes. She cradled the tea in her palms, savoring the gentle warmth that contrasted with the crisp fall air waiting back in Manhattan. Her mind drifted back to a Monday morning 2 weeks earlier in Midtown. In a boardroom on the 45th floor of Robinson Tower, she had slid open the frosted glass door and greeted her executive team with that same unhurried poise. The agenda had been straightforward. Finalize the acquisition of Aerotech Innovations, fine-tune the rollout of the autonomous cargo drone project, and outline a fresh philanthropic partnership to support STEM education in underserved communities. Her net worth, calculated at roughly $1.5 billion, rested on decades of carefully calibrated risk-taking. But she never let the numbers define her. She preferred to assess people, not metrics, and to solve problems, not chase headlines. That afternoon, she had slipped out of her designer pumps and paced the parquet floor of her private office. Family photographs lined the shelves, a snapshot of her childhood home in Baltimore, where her mother taught high school math and her father rented a corner store. "Never forget where you start," her mother used to say over Sunday dinners. Even now, long after she'd shepherded Robinson Dynamics from a two-person startup to a multinational powerhouse, those words echoed in her mind. Success, to Nia, was a quiet responsibility, an obligation to elevate others rather than to flaunt personal glory. Her reputation for humility was well earned. She drove a modest sedan when in New York, declined invitations to ostentatious galas, and made it a personal mission to learn every frontline team member's name at each Robinson Dynamics facility. When a junior engineer at the Seattle manufacturing hub suggested an efficiency tweak in the assembly line, she personally recorded a thank you message directly from her phone to acknowledge the idea. It was these small gestures, more than share prices or quarterly earnings, that reinforced the company's motto: integrity in innovation. Back on the plane, Nia folded her legs and glanced at the seatback screen displaying the flight's progress. The route would take them from New York to London in just under 7 hours. She tapped her phone to review her itinerary, a late-night video conference call with the London office, a briefing with the Financial Times, and an early breakfast meeting with a charity partner. Even on commercial flights, work was never far from her fingertips. Yet she believed in balance, and this flight offered a rare moment to simply observe, to experience life as one of her customers might. Pressing her thumbprint onto the secure app icon, Nia navigated to Robinson Dynamics' executive portal. A concealed menu toggled into view, fleet management controls, emergency liaison notifications, and a special clause labeled Safety Audit Suspension. She scrolled through the fine print. An emergency protocol that allowed her, in extraordinary circumstances, to ground any or all flights for up to 48 hours pending a third-party safety review funded by her own contingency reserve. It was a serious power, one she had authorized quietly 2 years ago after reviewing an independent report on mid-air turbulence incidents, but she had never needed to invoke it, until now. The cabin door closed with a soft click, and the flight attendants began preparing for departure. Nia lifted her tea, her expression composed, as she watched Sabrina Holloway assist a well-heeled passenger in first class. The attendant's precision and polish were impeccable, until Nia saw the brief, dismissive curl of her lips as she glanced back at Nia's row. That was the final spark she needed. With quiet deliberation, she tapped "Activate Audit Suspension" and entered a brief authorization code. The digital headline flashed on her screen: "All Robinson Dynamics aircraft temporarily grounded for safety audit. Estimated downtime 48 hours." A hush settled over the cabin as an automated announcement chimed directly to the flight crew's headsets. "Attention all crew. This is a corporate safety order. All operations on behalf of Robinson Dynamics are suspended effective immediately. Please cooperate fully with ground control and return to standard protocols." Down the aisle, Sabrina's smile faltered. She exchanged a quick glance with her colleagues, confusion and concern rippling through the cabin. Nia placed her teacup in its holder, closed her eyes for a moment, and breathed deeply. She felt neither triumph nor vindictiveness, only a serene sense that justice was unfolding exactly as intended. To an outside observer, it might have seemed abrupt. A billionaire CEO wielding corporate power in the confines of a single flight. But to Nia, it was the culmination of her life's work, protecting every individual who entrusted their safety to her company. She did not need to announce her identity. The safety clause spoke volumes. In that quiet moment, she embodied the principle she had always championed. True authority is never ostentatious, yet its ripple can reshape entire skies. Nia Robinson shifted slightly in her seat, the plush leather of 2A yielding beneath her. She reached down and grasped the cold metal of the seatbelt buckle, her fingers brushing the smooth surface as she tried to hook it into place. A subtle tremor ran through her hand. Nothing unusual for a 60-something CEO whose days often began before dawn and ended well past midnight. But today the buckle seemed uncooperative. She tugged gently, only to have the belt slip through her grasp and fall back to the floor with a soft thud. A faint flush warmed her cheeks. She lifted the belt again, adjusting her posture to find a better angle. But her second attempt met the same fate. It twisted awkwardly, the tongue refusing to align with the receptacle. Nia paused, tapping her finger lightly on the armrest as she collected her thoughts. This wasn't about pride. She'd navigated far more daunting boardroom showdowns. But in this moment, a small physical struggle felt magnified by the question echoing in her mind. Why am I being judged for something so simple? She glanced around her row. Passengers in 2B and 2C were engrossed in movies or laptops, completely unaware of her minor battle. She took a slow, measured breath, reminding herself that a stubborn seatbelt didn't reflect on her worth. With renewed focus, she braced her elbow on the armrest and leaned forward. Her slender fingers closed around the buckle's tongue, and for a second it hovered just inches from the slot. She paused, centering herself, then pushed forward with a gentle click. Relief washed over her in a soft exhale. But as soon as she settled back, she noticed the flash of amusement in Sabrina Holloway's eyes. The attendant was stationed just a few rows ahead, finishing up with a VIP passenger. Sabrina's uniform was immaculate, every seam and crease in place. Yet the smirk that played at the corner of her lips made it clear she found Nia's momentary vulnerability entertaining. That silent judgment stung more than any physical bump. Deciding not to let it go, Nia reached into her tote and retrieved a small leather notebook. She flipped it open to a blank page, intending to review notes for her evening call, but her attention drifted back to Sabrina's aisle. Observing another passenger's disdain was never simply a fleeting annoyance. It was a breach of the basic respect she believed everyone deserved. Summoning patience, Nia set the notebook aside and summoned the courage to seek assistance. She tapped lightly on Sabrina's shoulder. The attendant pivoted, her posture crisp and professional, yet her eyes flickered with impatience. "Excuse me," Nia said, turning her head so Sabrina could see her clearly. "I'm having a bit of trouble with my seatbelt. Would you mind giving me a hand?" Sabrina paused, evaluating her with a practiced tilt of the chin. "It's really quite simple," she replied, voice even but laced with condescension. "You just pull the strap across and click it into place." Naya nodded, acknowledging the instruction but resisting irritation. She tried again herself, but her fingers trembled and the buckles slid out of her grasp, clattering against the center console. "Ma'am," Sabrina said, her tone dipping into impatience, "I'm a bit busy. Perhaps you should try again on your own." The words landed like a slap, and a hush rippled through nearby seats. Nia felt a flash of embarrassment, not for herself, but for the dismissive attitude on display. She steadied her breathing. Nearby, a passenger in 3A exchanged a quick glance with his companion, eyebrows raised in sympathy. A subtle undercurrent of disapproval spread through the cabin, but no one spoke. In that moment, Naya realized that small acts of neglect could linger in the air longer than turbulence. Leaning forward once more, Naya met Sabrina's cool gaze. "Thank you," she said softly, "but I still could use your assistance." Sabrina's jaw tightened. With a curt sigh, she set aside the service tray and approached. Her wrist brushed Nia's as she reached for the belt, guiding the tongue into the buckle with a crisp click. For a heartbeat, they stood together in silence, two women on opposite sides of a social gulf. Then Sabrina backed away, turning her attention away as though nothing had happened. Naya rested her hand on her lap, feeling the secure latch beneath her fingers. The buckle was fastened, but the price had been her dignity. As the cabin lights dimmed for departure checks, Naya allowed herself a brief smile. She placed her tea aside and closed her eyes, fine-tuning a private plan in her mind. She wasn't here to punish, but she believed in the power of quiet justice. Sometimes, the softest response spoke the loudest truth. Have you ever been overlooked or dismissed when you needed help? Share your experience below. Your story might resonate with someone who needs to know they're not alone. Chapter 4. A glance of disdain, Sabrina Holloway stepped away from Nia's row as gracefully as a swan gliding across a still pond. Her posture immaculate, uniform creases sharp enough to catch light. She hovered for a heartbeat in front of a first-class passenger, an elderly gentleman with silver cufflinks and a monogrammed leather briefcase, leaning in to top up his glass of Dom Perignon. Her laughter, soft and practiced, lingered in the air as she turned her back, never once glancing toward 2A, where Nia sat quietly observing. Nia watched Sabrina's retreat with measured calm. In the soft glow of the overhead LEDs, she noted every detail. The confident arch of Sabrina's back, the precise sweep of her ponytail as she moved, the way her polished heels clicked on the aisle floor. There was no accidental glance, no flinch of conscience. Sabrina had made a conscious choice to ignore her. Behind Nia's tranquil expression, a spark of indignation flared. Small, invisible, yet burning fiercely under the surface. Pulling her legs in, Nia folded her hands in her lap and inhaled the scent of bergamot from her tea. This, invisible slights and silent judgments, was precisely what she'd encountered throughout her career, long before she'd built Robinson Dynamics into a billion-dollar powerhouse. She knew that true character revealed itself not when everything went smoothly, but when one had the power to choose kindness and decided not to. Sabrina's disdain was a challenge, an invitation to respond with the quiet, unyielding force that defined Nia's leadership. The cabin around them hummed with end-of-boarding chatter. A passenger in 2C tapped impatiently on his phone, glancing toward the galley. Two flight attendants exchanged whispered smiles as they stowed service carts. None of them seemed to notice the standoff playing out in the first few rows, but everyone would feel its impact soon enough. Naya allowed herself a private smile, one that carried neither malice nor triumph, but a serene certainty. Injustice, when left unchecked, demanded a response. Sabrina returned to her duties in first class, fussing over the placement of a designer throw on a VIP's lap. She smoothed a wrinkle in the passenger's scarf, nodded at his appreciative smile, then glanced over her shoulder toward business class, just enough to catch Nia looking back. In that instant, their eyes met. Sabrina's cool blue gaze, sharp as polished steel. Nia's warm brown eyes, steady and knowing. Sabrina's lips parted as if to speak, then snapped shut. The look of surprise that flickered across her face was quickly masked by practiced professionalism. But Nia saw it. She saw a crack in the facade. Inside Nia's mind, the outline of her plan crystallized. The emergency clause she had activated, grounding every Robinson Dynamics flight for a full safety audit, would cascade through airline operations like a silent hurricane. It wasn't vindictive, it was restorative. It reaffirmed the company's commitment to safety and respect, the very principles Sabrina had just trampled. But first, Nia would collect herself, allow the engines to spool, let the tension mount until every crew member and passenger wondered what would happen next. Shifting slightly, Nia reached into her tote and pulled out her notebook, its leather spine worn from years of meetings and site visits. She flipped to a page marked Safety Audit Suspension and traced her fingertip over the words. In cramped handwriting, she had outlined the three-step activation process: authorize, notify, confirm. Step 2 had already played out in the cockpit. Step 3 would come just before the captain's pre-flight announcement. She closed the book and tucked it away, confident that once it was time, no force on earth could stop the audit. Meanwhile, Sabrina, unaware of the looming corporate storm, moved on to replenish a champagne flute at the starboard side. She smiled at the passenger she served, but the smile faded as she noticed Lucas Bennett leaning in from 2 rows back. His dark eyes met hers, and he gave a subtle nod toward Nia's seat. Lucas's gesture was one of solidarity, a quiet recognition that transcended class and rank. Sabrina's cheeks flushed, whether from Lucas's gaze or a sudden sense of unease. Nia couldn't tell. But she savored that moment, the subtle alignment of right and wrong, the dawning awareness that respect was more than a uniform. As the cabin door closed and the engines began their steady rumble, Nia inhaled deeply, savoring the faint aroma of jet fuel mixed with premium coffee. The freshest chapter of her life, one in which she wielded authority not as a weapon, but as a shield for those overlooked, was unfolding. She looked out the oval window at the taxiway lights, their glow reflecting off her tranquil expression. In the world below, she was known as a visionary CEO, a philanthropist, an innovator. Here, she was simply a passenger who refused to be dismissed. Sabrina paused mid-gesture, her hand hovering above the bottle of Veuve Clicquot. She swallowed, as though something had lodged in her throat. For a fraction of a second, she seemed to debate whether to return to Nia's row and apologize, or to press on with polished indifference. Then she exhaled, tensed her shoulders, and refocused on the VIP ahead of her. The choice was made. Ignore again. That decision, this second act of disdain, sealed Sabrina's fate. Unseen by her, Nia's phone vibrated with the echo of an email to every executive and ground control station. Safety audit suspension confirmed. All flights grounded 48 hours pending review. The words were out of sight, but would soon be impossible to ignore. Nia placed her phone screen down, allowing that quiet command to gather power behind her composure. Final checks began. Flight attendants snapped overhead bins shut. The captain's voice chimed over the intercom, and seatbelt signs flickered on. For the first time since boarding, Sabrina glanced toward the cockpit monitors, her brow furrowing as she tried to make sense of the sudden shift in atmosphere. But it was too late. The storm had already formed, and every bolt of lightning would strike at the arrogance she had shown. Nia leaned back, crossing her ankles, feeling the gentle thrum of the engines beneath her. The soft click of seatbelts locking echoed throughout business class, a reminder that restraint, once secured, could hold back even the most turbulent forces. In that moment of stillness, she allowed herself a small, genuine smile, knowing the real journey had only just begun. Nia Robinson settled back into her seat, adjusting the silk scarf at her throat. but her gaze remained fixed on the aisle. A gentle hum of anticipation rippled through the cabin as flight attendants finalized their pre-departure checks. She considered for a moment whether to call her assistant to confirm the audit suspension, then decided to savor the atmosphere. Today's events were not about spectacle. They were about quiet principle. Just then, a soft voice came from her left. "Excuse me, Ms. Robinson?" Naya turned to see Lucas Bennett leaning across the console, his expression warm with genuine concern. He wore a charcoal sweater over a collared shirt and dark jeans, comfortable, unassuming, yet unmistakably attentive. "May I?" he asked, motioning toward her seatbelt. Nia nodded. His long fingers deftly hooked the buckle into place, the metal clicking securely. A small but significant gesture, and in that instant, the balance of the cabin shifted. "Thank you," Naya said, offering him a genuine smile. She folded her hands over her lap, feeling a wave of relief. And something more. In a moment of silent endorsement, Lucas had reaffirmed her belief that empathy could cross any divide. Lucas leaned back in his seat and gave her a respectful nod. "It looked tricky," he said quietly. "I've struggled with those before." He flashed a quick grin. "First time I flew, I almost got stuck in a seatbelt the same way. I was so embarrassed." Nia chuckled softly, the sound easy and unforced. "No reason to be embarrassed," she replied. "Mechanical things don't always do what we want." Her eyes softened. "Thank you for stepping in." He shrugged lightly. "We've all had our share of awkward moments. At least I got another story to tell." He glanced down the aisle toward the first-class section, where Sabrina Holloway was busy with other passengers. "I couldn't just sit by and watch someone get dismissed like that." At that, Nia felt a surge of gratitude, not only for Lucas's timely help, but for his willingness to speak up. It reminded her of the countless unsung heroes across her company, from mechanics in Seattle to software engineers in Berlin, who often went unnoticed yet powered every success. Here, on this flight, Lucas represented that same quiet integrity. A hush fell as the engine spooled to life. Naya reached into her tote and retrieved her notebook, the leather soft under her fingertips. She flipped to an empty page. Today, she wouldn't need to write much. Instead, she jotted a single line in neat script. "Allie, Lucas Bennett." She tapped her pen thoughtfully, committing to recognize him once the flight landed. Meanwhile, Lucas adjusted his seatbelt and glanced at the overhead screen, which now displayed a flight path stretching across the North Atlantic. He offered a shy smile. "Long flight," he said. "Anything I can do to make it easier?" "Actually," Naya began thoughtfully, "I'm meeting the London team tonight at 9 p.m. GMT for a strategy session. Would you mind keeping an eye out and letting me know when we're over Ireland? I tend to lose track of time." Lucas nodded without hesitation. "Consider it done. I'll tap you on the shoulder when we hit the green marker." He tapped the seatback screen with a grin, already accessing the flight tracker. "I've got it right here." As the aircraft accelerated down the runway, Naya sipped her tea, feeling the warmth spread through her. She watched Lucas input the waypoint into his smartphone. Simple, unpretentious, and profoundly kind. Around them, other passengers adjusted their trays and screens, oblivious to the subtle bond forming in 2A and 2B. Half an hour later, the seatbelt sign pinged off, and a uniformed attendant began her service rounds. Nia reached into her tote again, pulling out a small packet of peppermint mints. She offered one to Lucas. "Here," she said, extending the tin. "Peppermint? It helps with cabin pressure." Lucas accepted with a smile. "Thank you. That's very thoughtful." The attendant paused at their row, caught off guard by the interaction between a CEO and a fellow passenger. Nia offered a nod of encouragement, and the attendant continued down the aisle, refilling water bottles and distributing earphones. Lucas popped a mint into his mouth, his brows lifting in appreciative surprise. "I usually just grab whatever they hand me," he admitted, chuckling around the mint. I didn't know passengers kept things like this on board. Naya leaned back, eyes soft with quiet pride. Sometimes it's the small comforts that matter most. She paused, then added, and sometimes, surprising moments of kindness remind us why we reach heights beyond our expectations. Lucas looked at her thoughtfully. I'm curious, he said after a beat. You seem unshakable. What's your secret? She considered the question, letting it hang in the ambient light of the cabin. I've learned that dignity isn't about never facing challenges. It's about how you respond when they come. She tapped the notebook in her lap. A little grace and good planning, Go Eli almost got stuck in a seatbelt the same way. I was so embarrassed. Ong Wei. Lucas nodded, eyes bright. I'll remember that. He tapped a few notes into his phone. Chapter 5. Unexpected Ally. Naya grinned. Exactly. A soft chime signaled that lunch service was beginning. Plates of seasonal salad and grilled salmon appeared on fold-out trays. Lucas offered to help Nia with her tray, lifting it smoothly into place. She thanked him, savoring the savory aroma of lemon-infused salmon. Another small kindness that made the cabin feel a little more like a shared space than a collection of seats. Midway through the meal, as they chewed thoughtfully, Nia felt a gentle vibration in her pocket. She reached for her phone and saw a confirmation. Ground control acknowledges audit suspension. Flights grounded for 48 hours. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the gravity of her decision settle in her chest. It wasn't an act of vengeance. It was a demonstration of responsibility, a reaffirmation that safety and respect would always be paramount. She looked over at Lucas, who was scrolling through the flight tracker. His casual efficiency made her smile. She tapped his arm gently. We're about to pass over Ireland. Lucas glanced up, eyes sparkling. Right on time. Nia stood and slipped into the aisle. She made her way to the galley, where the lead flight attendant was consolidating service carts. In a soft voice, she asked for a few moments of attention. Heads turned as Nia Robinson introduced herself, not as the CEO, but simply as a fellow passenger who cared deeply about every person on board. She spoke politely, yet firmly, thanking the crew for their professionalism and asking that they extend the same courtesy to every passenger, regardless of seat assignment. Back in her seat, Nia found Lucas raising an eyebrow in admiration. That was impactful, he whispered. Just a reminder, Nia replied. Courtesy shouldn't be reserved for a cabin class. Lucas nodded solemnly. Agreed. The rest of the flight unfolded with a new air of respect. Crew members paused to greet Nia and acknowledge Lucas's assistance. Passengers in rows behind 2A and 2B leaned forward with curious glances. The cabin's atmosphere subtly transformed. A sense of solidarity and shared humanity had replaced the earlier tension. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the cabin in a gentle twilight glow, Nia closed her eyes and let herself rest against the headrest. In that moment, she felt the power of community, of one person stepping up, another saying thank you, and an entire cabin learning to see each other anew. The cabin lights dimmed to a soft, ambient glow as Sabrina Holloway moved through first class, delivering polished service with her trademark precision. She refilled flutes of Dom Perignon for the VIPs, each pour measured, each smile flawlessly rehearsed. The hush of pre-takeoff settled over the passengers, punctuated only by the gentle click of seatbelts and the low murmur of distant conversations. Yet beneath that surface calm, a current of unease was gathering strength. From her seat in 2A, Nia Robinson watched Sabrina's every movement. The attendant's posture was textbook perfect, spine straight, shoulders back, heels aligned. But Nia's sharp eyes caught the slight fold of Sabrina's brow, the micro twitch of her jaw when she thought no one was looking. Sabrina had delivered the final sip of champagne, then paused, glancing down the aisle. Their eyes met for a fraction of a second. In that instant, the temperature in the cabin seemed to shift. Nia felt it too, a quiet challenge, a wordless dare. She folded her arms, her own posture betraying no emotion, Yet the tension inside her coiled tighter. It wasn't just about a seatbelt anymore. It was about being seen and dismissed. It was about a simple courtesy withheld. As Sabrina turned her back and continued down the aisle, Naya considered her options. She could let the insult slide, chalk it up to one bad moment. She could confront the attendant outright, risking a public showdown. Instead, she simply observed. Quiet observation had always been her greatest asset. She kept her gaze steady, as though nothing mattered more than the next detail to note, filing away each nuance for later. A hush fell as the captain's voice crackled over the intercom. "Cabin crew, prepare for departure. Passengers, please ensure tray tables are stowed and seats are upright." The seatbelt signs blinked on. A ripple of nervous energy passed through the cabin. Footsteps, zippers, soft thuds against upholstery. Yet Sabrina moved with the same cool efficiency, barely registering the shift. Naya leaned forward just slightly, placing a hand on her teacup to steady it. She caught sight of Rachel Dawson at the rear service station, her dark ponytail bobbing as she organized headsets. Rachel's eyes flicked toward Naya's row, full of empathy, a silent question. But Rachel dared not intervene. She was still junior, still tentative. Sabrina's dominance in first class was intimidating, even to those who recognized her arrogance. Across the aisle, a well-dressed couple exchanged glances. The husband, in a navy blazer, nudged his wife, eyebrows raised. You could almost hear their private thoughts. "Did you see that?" But no one spoke. The unwritten rule of airline decorum held them in check. You didn't make a scene at 30,000 feet. Sabrina paused beside the galley, smoothing the crease of her skirt as though to reassert control. She turned toward Nia's section, ostensibly to check that everyone was secure for takeoff, but her eyes lingered on 2A. It was a glance of pure dismissal, a silent message. "You don't belong here." She caught Nia looking back and offered a blink of porcelain-white composure, then pivoted and swept away. The faint click of Sabrina's heels seemed amplified in the hush. Nia closed her eyes for a moment, inhaling the subtle scent of sandalwood from her perfume. She reminded herself that this was exactly the moment she had anticipated, the moment when arrogance laid bare its own weakness. She felt a quiet satisfaction, not of triumph, but of clarity. This was the final nudge she needed before her next move. A soft chime indicated that the flight attendants were taking their seats. Sabrina lingered at the head of the aisle, helping a wealthy passenger secure her laptop beneath the seat. She spoke in a gentle lilt, explaining how the tray table folded, offering one more practiced smile. Then, as though remembering Nia existed, she turned, just enough to recognize who Nia was, or who she thought Nia might be. But she caught herself and masked the hesitation, returning a polite nod. It was that hesitation, so brief, almost imperceptible, that sealed Sabrina's fate in Nia's eyes. She leaned back, her silhouette relaxed, and swirled the last of her tea. As the plane began its slow taxi toward the runway, Nia tapped her phone lightly. A discreet notification popped up. Audit suspension pending confirmation. She let it linger, allowing the promise of accountability to thrum beneath the cabin's polished veneer. Sensing a chance to shore up support, Naya glanced again at Lucas Bennett in 2B. He caught her eye and offered an encouraging nod as if to say, "I'm with you." Nia smiled briefly. In that small exchange, she felt the warmth of solidarity. It reminded her of the countless times she'd stood alongside employees who faced dismissal, who were overlooked for promotions, whose ideas were met with skepticism until the moment they succeeded. She knew this fight, perhaps this small battle, mirrored so many she'd waged in boardrooms and factories. The cabin door closed definitively, and the engines thrummed louder. Safety demonstrations played. Oxygen masks dropped in simulated practice. Life vests were pointed out. Every passenger dutifully followed along, but few registered the undercurrent of tension. Yet to Nia, to Lucas, to Rachel watching from the galley, the significance was unmistakable. A moment of injustice had transpired, and the prelude to reckoning was underway. As the seatbelt sign blinked off for takeoff clearance, Sabrina straightened in her jump seat. She offered a crisp, automatic salute to the cockpit, then sat back, her face carefully composed. She thought she'd weathered the storm. She thought the moment had passed. She did not realize how thoroughly she had underestimated the quiet force she had provoked. Naya placed her cup down and crossed her ankles, settling in. The cabin tilted as the plane accelerated, lifting smoothly into the night sky. Lights from the runway flickered below like fireflies, growing smaller until they disappeared beneath the wings. Inside, hearts pounded in synchronization with the engine's rhythm, yet Nia's heartbeat remained steady. She watched the stars emerge in the oval window, granting herself a moment of meditation. Beneath the calm exterior, her mind worked swiftly, timing, confirmation, execution. Sabrina's arrogance would meet its match, not with shouting or spectacle, but with a silent authority that resonated in every corner of the airline. The audit suspension, once fully enacted, would ripple through schedules, routes, revenue projections, an unspoken lesson in respect. Above her, the cabin lights dimmed for cruising mode, casting elongated shadows across the aisles. The soft hum of conversations resumed, but with a new edge of curiosity, as if passengers sensed something extraordinary in the air. Naya leaned forward, whispering to Lucas, "Watch the cabin, Mood. Notice any changes?" He nodded, eyes keen. Sabrina, seated in her jump seat, tapped her fingers against her thigh, a gesture of barely contained frustration. She avoided eye contact with the cabin, fixated instead on the monitor displaying flight data. She couldn't have imagined the impending storm, how her casual contempt had lit the fuse. And up here, above 70,000 feet of atmosphere, a quiet battle had been waged. Naya Robinson, armed with integrity and the tools of her own creation, was poised to deliver the final blow. It would come without fanfare, without a raised voice, just the steady, immutable force of justice enacted in silence. In that suspended moment, the air itself seemed pregnant with possibility. The world below might think this was just another flight. But those who understood, those who had felt the sting of dismissal, knew that real power often lay in the calmest hands. And Naya Robinson, gazing out at the infinite expanse, was ready to prove it. Naya Robinson sat perfectly still as the cabin settled into cruising mode, the soft drone of the engines underscoring the hush of conversation. She reached into her tote and withdrew her smartphone, a sleek device etched with the Robinson Dynamics logo on its matte black case. Around her, passengers leaned back into their seats, many drifting toward sleep or absorbed in screens. Sabrina Holloway was at the front, busy with a VIP's request, her back turned to the business cabin. Nia unlocked her phone with a quick thumbprint. The Robinson Dynamics executive portal opened instantly, secure yet intuitive. She navigated to the Fleet Operations tab, then tapped Emergency Protocols. Her fingertip hovered over the Safety Audit Suspension clause. The fine print reminded her this power was reserved for moments when safety or respect was compromised. Today qualified on both counts. A small knot of resolve formed in her chest, but her expression remained serene. She entered her 4-digit authorization code, eyes never leaving the screen. With a single decisive tap, she selected Suspend all flights 48 hours and confirmed. A dialog box appeared. All Robinson Dynamics aircraft will be grounded pending third-party safety audit. Estimated downtime 48 hours. Proceed? She tapped yes. Immediately, a flurry of notifications erupted across multiple channels. To the cockpit, an automatic radio transmission crackled in the pilot's headset. To senior executives, a high-priority email landed in every board member's inbox with the subject line, "Immediate audit suspension enacted." To the ground control network, a secure alert instructed all active flights to return to gate after securing current operations. Naya closed the app and slipped her phone back into her purse. She breathed out slowly, savoring the quiet power of her choice. Moments later, the cabin intercom clicked on. The captain's voice, calm but firm, replaced the whisper of the engines. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We have received an immediate corporate safety order. All Robinson Dynamics flights are hereby suspended for a mandatory safety audit. We ask that you remain seated while we taxi back to the gate. We apologize for the inconvenience and appreciate your understanding." A ripple of surprise surged through business class. Naya watched heads turn, brows lift. In first class, Sabrina froze mid-pour, her hands suspended over a champagne bottle. The attendant's face lost color. Lucas Bennett leaned forward from 2B, his eyebrows raised in astonishment. "Did she just ground the plane?" he whispered, half to himself, half to Nia. She nodded, cool and collected. "Safety first," she replied softly. In the galley, Rachel Dawson paused, headphones dangling from her neck as she processed the announcement. The young attendant exchanged a quick glance with a colleague, eyes wide. Sabrina, however, remained rooted to her jump seat, disbelief etched on her face. Sabrina Holloway was at the front, busy with a VIP's request, her back turned to the business cabin. As the plane began its slow, backward crawl toward the gate, whispers swelled into murmurs. A businessman in 3C tapped on his tablet, eyes flicking between the screen and the ceiling console. An elderly woman in 2C murmured to her husband, "I've never been told a flight was suspended mid-air." The hush that followed was laden with excitement, confusion, and, for some, relief. Sabrina finally snapped to action, straightening her uniform and rushing toward the galley. She caught Nia's eye for an instant, her gaze filled with shock and, strangely, a hint of fear. Nia offered a small, almost imperceptible nod. No words needed. Nia let herself relax back into her seat, crossing her legs. Beneath the calm surface, a slow smile curved at her lips. This wasn't about dramatics. It was about principle. She'd never meant to humiliate Sabrina publicly with fanfare, but the silence of this order spoke volumes. Respect and safety were non-negotiable. Minutes later, the plane came to a full stop at the gate. The seatbelt sign pinged off, and the flight crew sprang into measured action. Bins opened, carts rolled back. Attendants moved down the aisle with purposeful steps. Sabrina descended from her jump seat, shoulders tense, and approached Nia's row. Nia met her halfway. "Thank you, Sabrina," she said quietly, voice steady. "I appreciate your cooperation." Caught off guard, Sabrina's eyes flickered with panic. "Ma'am, I didn't realize." Nia held up a hand, stopping her. "It's not about understanding, it's about taking action when respect is denied." She paused, letting the words settle. "I trust you'll remember this moment." Sabrina nodded, unable to form a response. Behind Sabrina, other passengers peered forward, curiosity and newfound respect in their eyes. Lucas offered Sabrina a sympathetic shrug, silently conveying that the moment for redemption had passed. Down the aisle, Rachel Dawson caught Nia's eye and gave a subtle thumbs up. Nia returned the gesture with a genuine smile. This young attendant's courage to stand back while allied subtlety had not gone unnoticed. Overhead monitors flickered to messages. Flight grounded. Safety audit in progress. Ground staff prepped to meet the jet bridge. Nia gathered her belongings, her leather notebook, still marked Allie, Lucas Bennett, and the small silk scarf draped over her lap. As cabin doors opened, sunlight flooded the aisle. The hush of the flight turned into the roar of ground operations. Tug vehicles, crew buses, safety inspectors boarding. Passengers disembarked with murmurs of intrigue and approval. Many nodded to Nia as they filed past, seeing in her not just a fellow traveler, but the architect of responsible leadership. On the tarmac, airport personnel greeted the flight crew with clipboards and headsets. Sabrina joined the group, her expression sober as she received instructions from the lead flight supervisor. The humiliation of her earlier disdain was now rendered moot by the sheer scale of the audit suspension. 48 hours of grounded aircraft, $4.5 billion in market value, evaporated as stock prices plunged 15% in the wake of the announcement. Nia stepped onto the jet bridge, her posture as composed as ever. The late afternoon sun warmed her face as she walked past puzzled passengers. She paused at the bottom of the ramp, looked back at the plane, and offered a gentle nod. It was a silent benediction, proof that true power need never shout. Have you ever seen someone quietly stand up for respect? Share your story below. Alexander Sinclair sat behind the massive oaken desk in his corner office at Sinclair Capital Partners, floor-to-ceiling windows framing Manhattan's skyline behind him. His tailored navy suit was impeccable, as always, and his silver hair caught the late afternoon sun. He just wrapped up a conference call about emerging market opportunities when his secure phone buzzed insistently on the table. He reached for it without looking, expecting an update on Asia-Pacific yield curves. Instead, the screen lit up with a red banner alert. Robinson Dynamics, immediate audit suspension enacted. He frowned, tapped the notification, and his eyes widened as the email content loaded. Subject: immediate safety audit suspension from Executive Command to Board of Directors, Executive Leadership. All Robinson Dynamics aircraft are suspended for a mandatory third-party safety audit, effective immediately for a minimum of 48 hours. Reason: corporate safety and respect protocols breach. Incoming financial impact: market value drop of 15%, estimated at $4.5 billion in equity erosion. Please review attached directives for compliance. For a heartbeat, Sinclair was rooted to his seat, the phone trembling slightly in his hand. $4.5 billion, 15%. He reverently ran a fingertip across the edge of the email attachment, an executive memo detailing the board's unilateral action. His normally unflappable composure cracked. The numbers swirled in his mind. Quarterly forecasts undone, share price charts plummeting, portfolio valuations collapsing. He instinctively sank into the plush leather of his chair, pressing the phone to his temple. "Yes, I see it," he whispered, voice low and tight. "Read the directives?" "Understood." The voice on the other end, his CFO, was shocked but disciplined. "We'll coordinate with investor relations," the CFO said. Sinclair gave a curt nod, even though the room was empty. "Do it." When he hung up, his breath came in slow, measured bursts. A cold knot of adrenaline settled in his gut. He leaned back, eyes fixed on the attachment icon blinking on the screen. He tapped it, scrolling through detailed instructions. Immediate cessation of all flight operations under the Robinson Dynamics banner. Mandatory safety inspections, third-party auditors' credentials. Urgent memo to regulators confirming the suspension. Sinclair closed his eyes, recalling the board meeting 2 years ago when Nia had first proposed the safety clause. He'd questioned it then. He disliked the idea of a single person wielding such unilateral power. He'd asked, what if it's abused for petty disputes? What if it cripples our operations unnecessarily? Nia had listened patiently, then reminded him of their shared responsibility. If anyone in our ecosystem disrespects basic safety or human dignity, we lose our moral and social license to operate. I'd rather ground a fleet than ground our principles. He'd nodded then, but her words had barely registered over the hum of profit projections. Now, sitting alone in the office he'd built from inheritance and investment wizardry, he realized how prescient she'd been. He leaned forward, pressing his palms to his temples, trying to still the racing numbers in his head. At that moment, his executive assistant knocked lightly and slipped into the room. "Mr. Sinclair, the media is picking up the news. Headlines are flashing, billion-dollar audit halt shocks market. Shall I prepare a statement?" Sinclair rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Yes," he said, voice quieter than he intended. "Draft a release that emphasizes the company's unwavering commitment to safety and respect. We own this, no deflection. Get it on my desk in 10 minutes. She inclined her head and departed. Sinclair exhaled, then rose and walked to the window, staring down at the bustling avenue below. Yellow cabs cut through streams of pedestrians, oblivious to the seismic shift taking place at 30,000 feet. He closed his eyes, recalling Nia's calm when she tapped confirm. He remembered her serene smile as she slipped the phone back into her purse, as though she'd just completed an ordinary task. Her force had been quiet yet absolute. A subtle smile tugged at his lips now. He straightened, smoothing the lapels of his suit. He owed Nia a private apology, a recognition that her integrity had saved the company's soul at the cost of its market cap. He turned back to his desk, lifted a framed photo of the two of them at last year's shareholder luncheon, and touched the glass gently. Then he sat and logged into his terminal. He drafted his memo. To all Robinson Dynamics staff. From Alexander Sinclair, Chairman. Today's decision to ground our fleet was made by our founder, CEO, and chairwoman, Nia Robinson, invoking our highest safety protocols. While the immediate financial impact is significant, this action underscores our commitment to the values that built this company: safety, respect, and unwavering integrity. Over the next 48 hours, our operations teams and third-party auditors will collaborate with every level of our organization to ensure compliance and comprehensive review. Thank you for your dedication and professionalism during this critical time. He reread it, then clicked Send to All. Immediately, internal communications lit up with acknowledgements, questions, expressions of support, and a few stunned expletives. Sinclair leaned back, satisfied that the board would see unity rather than chaos. He glanced again at the two-page directive. Step 4 outlined media engagement. Step 5, rapid response Q&A. Step 6, customer compensation guidelines for grounded flights. The numbers, $4.5 billion, hovered at the top of the memo in stark red. The cost had been steep, but the command had been clear: no compromise on human dignity and safety. His phone buzzed again. This time it was Marcus Sheridan, the flight supervisor, confirming that all Robinson Dynamics branded flights had returned to gate without incident. We're proceeding with audit entry in mind, Marcus reported. Sinclair exhaled. Good. Thank you, Marcus. Keep me posted. The CFO's voice chimed next. We're bracing for after-hours trading reaction, Mr. Sinclair. Do you want to place any buy orders? Sinclair shook his head. Not now. Let the market find equilibrium. We'll reconvene at 6 p.m. with the strategy team. He ended the call and stood. The office felt unusually still, as though the very air had been cleared by his actions. He walked over to the credenza and poured himself a glass of mineral water. As he sipped, he allowed a moment to reflect on the core lesson. Respect was not a metric to be gamed, but a foundation to be honored. He set the glass down and drafted a one-line note to Nia. Your vision saved us. I apologize for ever doubting. He hit send. Moments later, her reply popped up. Integrity is our calling card. Thank you for your support. Sinclair closed his laptop and picked up the phone again, this time dialing his office at Robinson Tower. Please schedule a meeting with Ms. Robinson at her earliest convenience, he instructed. I need to thank her in person. As the sun dipped behind the skyline, painting the room in hues of gold and purple, Sinclair realized that sometimes the greatest returns weren't financial. They were measured in trust, respect, and the unwavering courage to do what's right, even at a steep price. And in that realization, he found a new depth of respect for the woman who'd quietly wielded her power and reshaped their world. The cockpit was cool and dim, lit by the soft glow of instrument panels and the steady sweep of the primary flight display. Captain Gregory Shaw sat at the controls, his hands poised on the yoke, while First Officer Elaine Park monitored engine readings. Between them hovered the steady hum of the Rolls-Royce Trent engines, now slowing as the jet prepared to return to gate. Marcus Sheridan, the flight supervisor, entered quietly and closed the cockpit door behind him. He folded his arms, eyes fixed on the amber ground light blinking on the console. His jaw tightened as he recalled the corporate order. Immediate disciplinary action for Sabrina Holloway. "Captain," Marcus began, voice low but firm. "Corporate just informed me of an incident in first class. The attendant, Sabrina Holloway, publicly refused to assist a passenger. That passenger is Ms. Nia Robinson, founder and chairwoman." Captain Shaw's hands stilled on the throttle. His eyes widened. "Ms. Robinson, on this flight?" Marcus nodded. "Yes, the order came down through Alexander Sinclair. We're to take action immediately upon landing." Elaine sat up straight. "Sir, do we have authority to summon her now?" "Absolutely," Marcus replied. He laid a gloved hand on the intercom switch. His voice, calm yet commanding, crackled through the cabin speakers. "Sabrina Holloway, report to the forward galley immediately." Back in first class, Sabrina's eyes snapped wide. She was mid-gesture, pouring champagne for a banker in a bespoke suit. The cork popped softly as she set the bottle aside. "Excuse me?" she murmured, blinking in confusion. The intercom repeated, "Miss Holloway, please report to the galley." Her heart lodged in her throat. She exchanged a glance with a colleague, lips parting. With trembling fingers, Sabrina set the glass on a tray, took a breath, and turned toward business class, her heels clicking like hammer strikes. In seat 2A, Nia lifted her hand in acknowledgement. Lucas beside her watched, eyebrows raised. Nia offered a subtle nod, a quiet affirmation that she had nothing to fear. Sabrina reached the galley, and Marcus stood waiting, arms still folded. His expression was unreadable. Diagnostic lights from overhead strobed briefly as cabin attendants secured service carts, an atmospheric underscore to the tense moment unfolding. "Miss Holloway," Marcus said, voice steady, "you know why you're here." She swallowed, shock and dawning horror flooding her features. "Sir, I apologize if I've done something wrong." Marcus's gaze didn't waver. "You refused to assist Ms. Robinson on 2 separate occasions. She requested help 3 times. That's a direct violation of company policy and basic human decency." Sabrina's breath hitched. Her uniform felt suddenly heavy, her practiced composure unraveling. "I was busy serving premium guests," she stammered. "Ms. Robinson is our founder and chairwoman," Marcus replied, voice calm but firm. "Your inattention reflects poorly on this airline and breaches our core values." High above, the seatbelt sign dinged off. Passengers began to stir, curiosity pulling at them like gravity. In the galley's open doorway, a few averted their eyes. Others peeked to see what had transpired. Sabrina felt every gaze, each a silent judgment bearing down on her shoulders. Marcus stepped aside, gesturing toward the cabin. "Sit with her," he instructed. "Offer a sincere apology and assist her for the remainder of the flight." Her cheeks burned. She nodded shakily. "Yes, sir," Marcus added quietly. "Upon landing, you'll face further review. This incident will be logged for corporate evaluation." Sabrina's face fell, tears brimming. She swallowed and straightened her shoulders as best she could. "Understood." She stepped toward 2A, each tap of her heels a punctuation mark. Nia watched with composed serenity. As Sabrina knelt beside her seat, she reached out with tentative fingers, a gesture of contrition. "I'm so sorry for how I treated you," Sabrina said softly, voice trembling. Nia offered a gentle smile, calm and unwavering. "Thank you," she replied. "That means more than you know." Up in the cockpit, Captain Shaw exhaled, exchanging a look with Elaine. Marcus rose to leave, his mission complete. Outside, runway lights blurred past as ground crews readied the jet for further inspection. In the stillness that followed, Nia returned to her seat, Sabrina's apology lingering in the cabin air. The plane, once a stage for disdain, was now an arena for accountability. And as the doors closed again and the engines whispered back to life, the quiet power of justice, delivered not with fanfare but with unwavering principle, steered them all toward a new understanding of respect. Sabrina Holloway's polished heels clicked against the aisle floor as she approached the forward galley. Her pristine navy uniform felt suddenly constricting, every seam tight against her shoulders. The soft hum of the ventilation system and the distant murmur of passengers faded into silence in her mind. She stopped just inside the galley doorway, heart pounding so hard she could almost hear it in her ears. Before her stood Nia Robinson, calm, composed, and every bit the quiet force that had grounded their entire fleet. Nia regarded her with steady brown eyes that held neither glee nor malice, only measured authority. Sabrina swallowed hard. The world seemed to tilt. All the confidence she'd prided herself on was slipping away. She opened her mouth, then closed it, searching for words that wouldn't come. The galley lights above threw soft shadows on her face, highlighting the paleness creeping into her cheeks. Clearing her throat, Sabrina finally managed, "Ms. Robinson, Her voice cracked. She glanced toward the cabin, catching a glimpse of Lucas Bennett leaning forward in seat 2B, watching with solemn sympathy. Rachel Dawson stood a few feet behind Nia, her dark ponytail bobbing with nervous concern. Even the bank executives in first class had paused, their champagne glasses halfway to their lips. Nia tilted her head, inviting Sabrina to continue. "You called me back," Sabrina whispered. "So I could apologize?" Her voice trembled as she took a hesitant step forward. "I'm sorry for how I treated you. Nia held up a slender hand, gentle yet firm. "Apology noted," she said softly. "But first, do you know who I am?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Sabrina's breath hitched. You're Nia Robinson," she stammered, voice barely audible. "Founder and chairwoman of Robinson Dynamics, this airline's parent company." Nia nodded. "Correct." She folded her hands in front of her, gaze unwavering. "I'm also the person whose safety and dignity you dismissed without a second thought." Her tone was calm, but the weight of those words settled heavily on Sabrina's shoulders. Tears welled in Sabrina's eyes as she bowed her head. "I never meant to disrespect you," she croaked. I thought I was doing my job." "You were doing your job, to serve," Nia replied, voice serene. "But service requires respect. It isn't earned by uniform or title alone. It's shown in every interaction, every moment. You had 2 chances to extend kindness, and you chose indifference." Sabrina's tears slipped free. She reached out, but then hesitated. "I'm so sorry," she choked. "I don't have an excuse. I was thoughtless." A hush fell as Nia regarded her. Then, in a tone soft yet resolute, she said, "Your apology is a start, but it must be followed by change. I want you to return to first class, assist every passenger you encounter this flight, and do so with genuine courtesy." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Actions will speak louder than any apology." Sabrina nodded, shoulders quivering. "Yes, ma'am, I will." The humiliation on her face was raw and real. She wore it like an emblem of lessons learned too late. "Good," Nia said, offering a small, encouraging smile. "Remember this moment. Respect is not optional." She turned slightly, signaling Lucas and Rachel. "Thank you both for your patience today." Lucas rose and offered Sabrina a sympathetic nod. Rachel simply bowed her head, relief and pride mingling in her expression. Sabrina gave a trembling half-smile, then backed toward the aisle, her steps heavy but determined. Nia watched her go, then placed a reassuring hand on the galley countertop. She inhaled the faint scent of coffee and ozone, savoring the quiet aftermath. Around her, the cabin slowly came back to life. Seats thumped upright. Overhead bins clicked shut. Passengers exchanged curious glances. Sliding back into 2A, Nia settled in with serene confidence. Lucas returned to his seat, meeting her eyes with a nod that spoke volumes. Rachel rejoined the service in first class, her posture renewed by having stood up for what was right. Above them, the seatbelt sign dimmed as the aircraft prepared for its final approach. In that suspended moment, the echoes of Sabrina's contrition and Nia's measured mercy created a new atmosphere. one of accountability, empathy, and the promise that respect, once lost, could be restored. The cabin door opened onto the jet bridge, flooding the aisle with mid-afternoon sunlight. Passengers streamed out, their faces a mix of curiosity and relief. Market analysts would later call this the audit flight, but for those aboard, it was a lesson in respect and its resurgence. Sabrina Holloway stood near the galley, uniform immaculate, but shoulders slumped. The lead flight supervisor approached, a stack of crisp suspension paperwork in hand. "Miss Holloway," he said quietly, "you're suspended effective immediately pending a full review. You'll receive details via corporate HR. Please gather your belongings." Her breath caught. She nodded, tears from earlier replaced by a hollow calm. With a final glance at Nia Robinson standing in 2A, now offering a small, sympathetic nod, Sabrina stepped out onto the jet bridge, each footstep heavy with the weight of her actions. In seat 2A, Nia watched in silence, her posture relaxed yet dignified. Nearby, Lucas Bennett exhaled softly, then gathered his own bag and rose to depart. He slipped past Nia and offered her a sincere handshake. "Thank you for showing what leadership truly means," he said quietly. Nia smiled. "Thank you for reminding me why empathy matters." As Lucas and Nia left the plane, Rachel Dawson emerged from the galley. Her uniform was impeccable, but her eyes shone with pride. Sabrina's fall from grace had been sharp, yet Rachel's courage in observing and resisting the disrespect had not gone unnoticed. Meanwhile, in the flight crew lounge, the head of cabin services called Rachel forward. "Rachel," he began, handing her an embossed certificate and a commendation letter. "Your conduct today exemplified our core values. We're promoting you to senior flight attendant, effective immediately." Rachel's eyes widened. I don't know what to say. Thank you." "You deserve it," he replied with a warm smile. "Your integrity has set a new standard." Back on the jet bridge, Sabrina paused at the foot of the stairs, her suspension papers tucked under one arm. She looked back at the jet, then at Nia and Lucas disappearing into the terminal. For a moment, she closed her eyes, letting the afternoon sun warm her face, and drew in a steadying breath. Inside the terminal, Nia led Lucas to a quiet corner cafe just beyond the gate. As they settled into plush chairs, Nia reflected on the day's events. "It wasn't about punishment," she said, stirring her tea. "It was about accountability, an opportunity for growth. I hope Sabrina takes this time to learn that respect is non-negotiable." Lucas nodded thoughtfully. "I'm glad you chose to act. It's not every leader who wields power with such restraint." Nia met his gaze, gratitude shining in her eyes. "She'll learn, and the airline will too. Today set a precedent. Dignity isn't granted by rank. It's earned in every interaction." Outside, the tarmac buzzed with activity. Ground crews preparing for the safety audit teams, maintenance crews rolling out inspection gear, and a stream of passengers filing into the terminal. The news crews set up cameras, capturing reactions and broadcasting headlines of the $4.5 billion market shakeup. Inside the cafe, Nia and Lucas finished their tea. As they rose to leave, Nia placed a hand on Lucas's shoulder. "Thank you for standing by me," she said quietly. Lucas grinned. "Anytime." As they walked toward the airport exit, the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows and bathing the terminal in a golden hue. The world beyond would buzz with debate over corporate governance and market fallout. But for Nia Robinson, the day's true victory was simple and profound. A reaffirmation that respect, once lost, can be restored, and that genuine leadership springs from empathy and integrity. The sun hung low over the terminal, painting long golden streaks across the polished floor as Nia Robinson walked away from the jet bridge. Around her, passengers and crew paused to offer nods of respect, an unspoken acknowledgement that something meaningful had just unfolded at 30,000 feet. Nia's steps were measured, her posture graceful, the soft click of her heels a quiet counterpoint to the buzz of airport announcements. Behind her, the grounded jet waited for its safety audit teams to board, its cabin already hushed by yesterday's events. The crew moved with renewed purpose. Colleagues who once hesitated to intervene now exchanged warm smiles, buoyed by the knowledge that integrity had prevailed. Across the tarmac, ground control vehicles queued up, ready to escort specialized inspectors. The ripple effect of a single choice, to demand respect and enforce accountability, had reached far beyond that one cabin. Naya paused at the sliding doors, taking a deep breath of cool evening air. She thought of the day's arc, from the first glance of disdain in Sabrina Holloway's eyes, to the silent activation of the safety audit, to the final apologies and promotions for those who upheld decency. It had been a journey of small moments stacking into something much bigger, proof that true authority doesn't roar, it resonates. A voiceover might sum it up simply: respect is not a courtesy, it's a right. But this was more than a slogan. It was a lived reality, one that had reshaped the culture of an entire airline in a single flight. Every person's dignity mattered, from the oldest traveler fumbling with a seatbelt to the youngest attendant standing up for what was right. As she stepped through the departure hall, Nia spotted Rachel Dawson, now senior flight attendant, walking beside a rookie colleague, offering guidance with genuine warmth. Lucas Bennett had already slipped away, but she saw his note pinned to the staff bulletin board. Empathy isn't a weakness, it's our greatest strength. Even the bankers and executives drifting through the lounge paused, exchanging stories of the flight that grounded more than metal. In hushed tones, they spoke of accountability, of corporate courage, of the simple power of a single act. Naya allowed herself a small smile. She wouldn't claim victory for herself. The real triumph belonged to every person who chose empathy over indifference, respect over prejudice. She had only provided the moment of reckoning, the framework for change. What came next, how individuals carried these lessons into their own lives, was the true measure of impact. Walking toward the exit, she raised her phone and tapped out a quick message to her team. Remember this, dignity underpins everything we do. Let's keep it alive in every interaction. The reply was immediate. Thumbs up emojis, short notes of agreement, and a promise to weave today's lessons into training modules and daily briefings. Outside, the evening sky deepened to a velvety blue. Families reunited at baggage claim. Business travelers headed for late-night meetings, and cleaning crews prepared the gate area for the next flight. Life moved on, as it always does. But for those who had witnessed what respect and its absence could ignite, the world felt a little more connected, a little more human. Naya paused at the automatic doors, turning back for a final glance at the aircraft that had become a catalyst for change. In that reflection, she saw possibility. The next time someone faltered, another ally would step forward. The next time arrogance surfaced, another voice would insist on accountability. With a gentle nod to herself, she stepped outside into the cool night. The terminal lights gleamed behind her, but it wasn't the glow of neon or floodlights she carried. It was something quieter, yet far more enduring. The steadfast belief that every person deserves respect, every single time. You've witnessed acts of both humility and disregard today. When you see injustice unfold, what will you do? Share your experience in the comments below. Your voice could be the next spark for change.